Hello, how are you today? Another video of Fixit Proz. Today we have an iPhone 6 that needs repaired. The LCD doesn't seem to be functioning at all. So what we're gonna do is open this one up and double check, see what's going on. Let's get started here. We're gonna use our pentalobe screwdriver. And sometimes you're gonna see this looks kind of a little bloated, probably the battery's blown up, and seems like this has been broken enough where the screwdriver, the pentalobe won't come out because the little part broke. So we're gonna open this up with the Sesmo. Just gently pry that open, lift this up, and we're gonna see what's going on. Seems like this has been repaired before and the battery's a little bloated. So the first step we're gonna do is disconnect the battery. Keep all your screws in order, and let's disconnect the battery. I like to use either like a plastic tool, or sometimes you can use one of these. Just pry open the battery there, and this battery looks a little bloated. It seems to be not turning on. Take that out. This has been repaired before, so we're going to disconnect these here. Just be careful popping these off, because there's like some tiny chipsets here that you can take off while you're doing so. So what I like to do first is I like to test the phone. So we're gonna take this newer battery because that battery didn't seem to turn the phone on. We're gonna take our LCD here. Okay, this is a top quality LCD. It's one of the new brands. This is a ESR LCD. It's very close to the original in colors, brightness, and resolution. Even though they all look the same, they're really not. So we're going to connect this here. Make sure you gently connect from right to left. Make sure it's nice and flat. Okay. And let's connect this battery. Let's see if we get some power. Okay, so it seems to be turning on. It's a good sign. If you can see the brightness, it's very close to the original. You guys can see how, if I can capture that on video, definitely take a look at that. Give me 1 second, guys. Oh, we're waiting for that to power on. Okay, and we're back. It did power on, but now it's saying needs to reinstall, reactivate in 14 minutes. Okay, we could put our passcode in. So for right now, we can touch this. Everything seems to be working properly. Okay, so we'll just leave that there for a few minutes, and let's get to taking off the parts. So this is the broken LCD. We're gonna transfer all these parts over, okay? So the first step is take off these side bolts. Okay. This holds the frame down, so I like to keep these in order, even though primarily they're all the same size. But it's always good to try to keep them in order. Okay, so now you got your small plate button screw holding the plate down, and then we have your home button. I like to definitely keep these in order. Okay, we're gonna take this off, the shield. Now we're gonna take off the top camera. Okay. Okay, put this back here. Now, usually, because this has been already repaired before, I like to apply a little heat here only because these proximity sensors can get stuck in here and then it completely breaks off. And then what happens is you now have to replace the flex cable, which, it depends if you have one already, or it can cost you, 15, 20 bucks. This was repaired already, so I was kind of pretty sure it would be loose. But especially if it hasn't been repaired, heat that up, because this little guy right here gets stuck. This is the proximity sensor. This is the part that when you put the phone to your face, the screen goes blank. If that breaks off when they put the phone to their face, the screen's going to stay on. So just be careful with that, okay? Leave that there. Now we have this loose. You can start taking this apart. I like to loosen the button, and I try to loosen this up too. Again, this has been repaired before, but if it wasn't before, use a little heat on the back of the glass. So as you pry this open, I like to keep everything intact because sometimes you can tear this flex cable trying to pry it open. So if you can kind of see here, and right behind where the home button clicks in, there's the flex cable. I like to get under the flex cable. There's a small piece of metal that you can kind of pry off like that, you see? Just be very careful. Try to make sure this button's loose so it doesn't snag and then tear, okay? Somebody, repaired this before and never took the sticker off. But anyways, so now we're pretty much ready. I'm going to do a couple more little cleaning. I like to use this QD ERC cleaner. It's an electronic cleaner, but it's very good on glass, especially the camera. Then the customer complains that their camera's all foggy because you never really cleaned it. It's not your fault, but that it got dirty. But it's always best to clean it for the customer, okay? And same thing with the proximity sensor. Seems like it's dirty. I'm going to take this part off. You got to be a little careful too, because sometimes this gets stuck and it doesn't want to come off. So sometimes it's better, if it feels loose, it doesn't. Instead of trying to play around with that, I'd rather actually take the one off the screen. So this still has 11 minutes, but we're going to shut it down. Sometimes it starts all over, but it's okay. We're going to shut this down. I always like to wait for the backlight to completely shut down. That way there's no current running through it. So wait till that goes completely off. Now it's off. Then you can disconnect your battery. Okay? Disconnect your parts. Always be real careful disconnecting that. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to disconnect that. Okay, now we're going to put our plates on. Make sure this tab comes down, and this plate, the back plate, is going to go over this tab underneath that metal. Make sure your cables don't get hooked underneath there. Again, you're going to position your home button. Okay, and everything's set, and start to reassemble your screen. Okay. You just want to make sure that these holes are even, so maybe you might not want to screw them down completely all the way, because then the screw won't go on the top. So you position these in here. Okay, there we go. Let's get the bottom bolts in here. And these you have to be careful, don't screw them down too tight because you'll feel the home button won't click. So before you completely install everything and close it down, double check that home button. Okay? Make sure it's clicking right now. And you'll feel it click. You don't feel it click, all you gotta do is just loosen a little bit. Okay? So now we're ready for our camera. Here's a piece of plastic. Make sure you remove this because right here is a little hole and that's where the mic is gonna go in from the camera. So if you block that, after you reinstall everything, your customer's not going to be really able to hear. Oh, so back here, I had mentioned that there's already a plastic piece here. So I'm going to try to remove that without scratching. Okay, so boom, it just came out pretty easy. Sometimes it's easier just to remove that because there's already one there, okay? Instead of breaking everything. There's a little tiny hole, I don't know if you see that, right here. And it's more like a guide, and you'll see a little pin right there to kind of set it in place. Because that hole has to sit directly. There's actually a hole right here. So make sure that there's no glue there, because if that's all covered up, your customer's not going to be able to hear. Or that's actually the mic. Okay, so you're going to pop that in there. And then you're going to close this down, make sure these pieces go in here. And now we're going to connect, see these gold pins and the gold pins here. So that's going to sit on top. So you're going to make sure that this goes in flat. You're going to have to like hold it, make sure it's flat, and then double it over. And then pop the camera in. And again, there's two more little pins right here. Little hole there, little hole there, 2 pins, and over here as well you're gonna see like 2 holes right here. So that's gonna go right on top, and make sure it's nice and flush. You can see that, and then go ahead and start to put your screws back in. Again, once it stops, stop. Don't keep turning it 2 more times or whatever, because you will touch the glass on the other side, and eventually, if you don't scratch it now with enough tension, it can crack later. Your customer will come back and not have dropped the phone, but because you apply too much pressure, eventually, you know, any little vibration eventually will crack the glass. Okay, same thing goes at the bottom. Once it stops, once you feel it stop. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we're all set there. What we kind of want to do is I like to just clean these edges, the edges. See all that dirt. Okay, that's dirt. I want to kind of get rid of that. Because what will happen is sometimes the screen won't sit properly. So just kind of get rid of that. And then you can see if there's any problems with the screen. You can take a little rag if you like, some of the cleaner, kind of clean it out there for the customer. Okay, and the corners look pretty good. Sometimes you have to use this little tool to just kind of bend out the corners. I wouldn't recommend like a hammer because you can loosen one of the ICU chips. This one looks pretty good. Body, let's see if it's a little bent. Body looks a little decent, but again, you don't want to really mess with the the frame, because underneath here, if one of the chips got loose, like this body's a little bit bent, so if you try to bend it back, one of the chips can get really loose and then it won't touch anymore. Now you got a bigger problem. So what we're gonna do is now use our double tape. Take a little double tape. Okay. Put your double tape in here. Again, we're changing the battery. First, it wasn't even turning on. And secondly, the battery looked damaged because it was loaded. So now we're going to take the top part off the double tape. Okay. Okay, put our battery in. I like to clip it in first, make sure it's going to sit right. And then kind of maneuver it over. So I know it's going to sit perfectly in there. Okay, so now I know it's going to sit in there. I'm going to disconnect it. Usually like to put my stamp on there for warranty issues. Now this one looks like it had a little water damage, but that was probably prior, because it seems to be working. And always check the frame. Make sure there's no loose bolts, because sometimes you might find a loose bolt somewhere. And when you close the lid, it'll get stuck over here. The speaker, there's a magnet, and then you'll crack the screen. Okay, everything looks pretty good. Now I'm going to disassemble, or reassemble, I should say. Okay, click everything in. Camera, all the flex cables. This did not have the top shield. If it comes without the top shield, or you confuse the bolts, what order is, don't put any bolts in there, because they're all different sizes, and you can screw into the motherboard and damage some of the connections. So just leave it as is. And this one was not there. Let me see if this one's there. You gotta watch out for other repair guys. They just put any bolts in here, so I'm not gonna fuss too much with that one, because that definitely is not the right bolt for there. So it'll hold in place, and we're gonna now close it up. Okay, make sure there's two little teeth over there. There's some grooves underneath here, so get them underneath here, and then slowly you're going to close this. Okay, a little pressure. Okay, oh, forgot one thing, and I was actually thinking about that. Because the bolt didn't come out in the beginning, the bottom screw, watch out, because it was still there. So you just want to push that out right there. Okay, there you go. We're going to reclose that again. Okay, looks pretty decent. And again, you don't want to mess with the frames too much, because we've had issues where you try to fix the frame and then the phone starts touching, and now you got a bigger problem. Okay, so that looks pretty good, looks pretty decent. We're gonna hit the power, and the phone's coming on, and we're gonna see that this was a need a screen repair and the battery repair, and probably gonna have the phone disabled starting in like 15 minutes. All right, guys, thank you again so much. If you have any questions, please feel free to look in the description and send us an email. Have a great day. Thank you.